Hello, this is the first tutorial in the use of IES VE for the Advanced Sustainable Design MSc at Edinburgh University. And you should have already imported a model of a building that we gave you a week or so ago from SketchUp into IES VE, which will have looked like this without all the dimensions and without the shade at the back there. And we're looking to now you open up the file for IES VE that you did after you downloaded it all. So when you open up your model, you're going to see a screen like this. This is the IES Virtual Environment, which is currently showing on its main window a plan of a wireframe model of what was imported. Now you can't really tell much about that. You can only see it's a plan because of this box up here. You can change the view of what you're looking at to elevations, but probably most obviously to axonometric, which is that one there. Just to highlight, here are some various tools that you can edit and add things. Down the side here are the different applications as part of IES. We're going to be working in ModelIT and later looking at Suncast, but below here are a whole load of energy and lighting tools that we'll get around to looking at some point. And then underneath is a list of all the rooms that you imported and were individually identified. And as I roll my mouse over the top here, you can see it's highlighting different rooms, and there it said that's room 7. And we'll get into what the characteristics of that room is next. So now to find out a bit more about the room that we've highlighted here, which is room 7. Sorry if things jumped a bit over on the left here. But room 7, already highlighted, is that one there. And you need to try to get your head around how this is presented, which is in a series of different levels, either a whole building level, and then by clicking on this little set of arrows up here, you go between the different levels, between room and then components. And at room level, you can pick on a particular component that you want to see. And actually, if you look over on the left here, it will have highlighted a particular wall, which has now become open. If I go down a level, it'll tell you which window I am concentrating on here. There, that one there. And it says what it's made of and how big it is. And as you go back up the levels, you'll see the different tools become available. Like that one's become available now, and now all of these become available. So certain things only work at certain levels. In a similar way, certain tools only work in certain views. So you can see all of this lot of grey out at the minute, which are the basic tools for drawing shapes, but they all appear when I switch to plan, and generally available as well when you're in the orthogonal views, but not in the axonometric. But you can do other things there, which we'll come back to what those are. There's more information apart from this and this. You can go to by picking the tabular room data button here, which has got various extra information about how high it is. But the one I really want to show you is the room type thing here, which is showing there are 3 other ways that you can allocate each object. And these 3 types here are for non-heat calculating objects, basically things that are only there for shading. So like adjacent buildings is one type, topographical shade will be hills and trees, and local shade will be things like balconies and solar shades and porches that are just essentially stuck on the face of the building. They can be part of it, but they don't really do the work of, they're outside the envelope. All these 3 work in a similar way, but you just allocate them differently. So other information that's already in here is the location and orientation. Orientation's really, really easy. It's this little button up here, but you'll probably best see it by going into plan, and it's whatever's up the page at the time is usually the north one, but you can reset that really quickly just by clicking on that and resetting an angle. Oops, I'm going to enter a whole number, as you noticed, 90, there you go, and suddenly this end here would become the north one, and you would click OK, but I'm going to not that because I want to leave it in the same direction. Then there's also the physical location, which is noted down here at the bottom, which is Edinburgh Airport. But to get more information about that, click on AP Locate at the end here, and you get some information including the altitude and the exact latitude and longitude and what kind of situation you have there. So if you want to make it sort of somewhere within Edinburgh but much more country, it will adjust things to allow for that. And equally, if you are right on the coast, you might want to change the wind exposure, but most places it's normal. And it also comes with a package of weather data, which you can have here, which kind of lists it all out and gets it from an ASHRAE database. And you can bring up information about that over here, either as grids, graphs rather, and you can bring up a sun path, which is really handy. So the way you need to adjust this, I think some of this window may be just a bit off the bottom at the minute, is to get to look at redoing the site and weather data by the selection wizard. And here you just follow the next buttons at the bottom as you select different places. Obviously, if we're looking for somewhere else other than Edinburgh Airport, then we would pick another city here. And you can see there are all kinds of locations. I mean, lots of different countries here. We've got Qatar here. We've got China here. And you can see there's a lot of locations in China if you want to pick those. Let's just pick, let's find Beijing, shall we? There we go, and it's given the new latitude and all of that, and then follow on to the next, and we need to get some weather to go with that. So we've already selected that, have to press Acquire Design Weather, OK we say, and then on to next, and then naturally you don't want that weather for Dundee anymore, so pick nearest to site, and we do have one for Beijing. It's not always going to be in exactly the same place as your original location. If I click finish now, and then if I'd say yes at this point, it would now just change to Beijing and we're all ready to go. But I'm just going to do no, and I'm still in Edinburgh Airport, so we're okay. So that's how you would change the location, and I'm sure you'll have plenty of use for that in the future as you look at different climates. One more thing that is very handy to be able to view your building, where you can scroll around the views a bit easier, how to use View, Model Viewer 1 and Viewer 2 over here, which have got slightly different things. Really easy to click on the binoculars to get Model Viewer 1, and you can scroll around this particular slightly more rendered model using the similar sort of mice tools that you've got for SketchUp, that is left clicking and dragging, and you alter the angle there, and you can see it's rendered with different kinds of shadows and so on. And up here you've got some tools which give you viewpoints that you can set, and you can actually start to see inside the building in certain things. And then next to it, Model Viewer 2 gives you a slightly more rendered version with things like skies in it, and once again you can change the direction using left clicking and dragging. And you can see up here you can actually set camera angles and change the sky, and change whether or not you've got a ground plane, what colour it is, and so on. But what's quite handy, just to show you what it can do, if I zoom out now by scrolling back the way, I've put in the sun path here, which you can then show diagrammatically where is the sun at different times of day by dragging along here, or time of year, or type of day, and it will move the sun around as it goes. And if you just want to get back to your original viewer, then you click on each of these successively, and you'll be back to where you started with just the good old wireframe axonometric, if that's where you left it. One more thing that's really useful to be able to view around your object is by going to View tabs, picking viewports, and having more than one viewport up at one time, so that you can have an elevation and a plan, or an axonometric and a plan up at the same time. So when you pick on something, you can see, for example, it's highlighting the extent of it in the plan on the right and the location on the left if you can't quite see where everything is there. So quickly going back to the single viewport, we are now going to look quickly at where the basics of the settings are. First of all, there's your snaps under the little lock bar, and you can see the grid is already turned on. The grid you can't see terribly well, but here you can see when you click on that one that it's quite a fine grid that we're working with. And if you want to alter the geometry of it, you can do it so here. I'll maybe not go into that right now. You'll also find there are settings are under Tools Preferences for what you see at different times. Most one important being units is set for metric. You can see it's very basic. It doesn't tell you whether it's millimeters or meters, but it is in fact generally set to meters. You can see dimensions here. If you click on this and then manage to locate on 2 points, it'll tell you up here what a particular dimension is. I'm just going to show you quickly how to add an extra little object adjacent to your building rather than starting off by manipulating. So we'll click on the prism up here, which is one of a number of shapes you could use. Brings up a window where you get to name it. I've already called it the next house, but I want this to be an adjacent building, so it's just doing a shading job. The figures below show where the base of the thing is, in this case at the main ground floor level, and the roof will be 5 meters above that, or the top of the zone in this case. So all I need to do now is to click and drag and to the size I want. So I'm going to try and make this 5 by 5. It is quite inaccurate in a minute. That'll do me. And now what I want to do is to go back and select this, and I can move this to where I want it to by clicking and dragging. And if I have a quick look at the axonometric, there we have a little object rather close to our building. So now going back to the plan so I can move things again, I'm quickly going to move our new building a bit further away from the building just by using the move function again. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, already highlighted, the copy button next to it, again clicking and dragging, so I've got a copy. If I highlight both of those, this would be the normal way that you would add an extra floor. So quick look at the axonometric, I've already got those two highlighted. And now if I go to the front plane, I use the same button again, grab the corner, click and drag, and suddenly if we go to axonometric, we have two tall buildings. The next thing to show you is that there's a very simple way to add pitch roofs to these things. So if I just highlight one of the top zones like that on my extra building, over here is a generate roof. And a little button comes up that says what slope of roof do you want, how much should it project beyond the sides, and hip roof means you can have it in 4 directions as opposed to just the 2. I'll just unclick that to show you what the 2 slope side looks like. Very easy. And selecting this one, I'll give it the hip roof instead by clicking that button. And there you go, goes the other direction. So just to show you a couple more functions, I'm going to undo the 2 roofs and quickly to manipulate some of these objects here. First of all, I'm going to go into the front plane and select one of the top stories here, and over on the right here there's the one where we check the heights of objects, and if I just change the height at the top of the object, this is saying that the bottom's at 5 meters, the top's at 10 meters, I'll make that to 12. Change and close, and suddenly I've got a taller object. If I now go back to axonometric, I can also extend that in one direction or another. This works in plan as well. I just have to select one of the sides after selecting the button at the top there, and then drag again, and it says in steps of a meter how far I want to move it, so I'll just do that, and it's given me a cantilever off the front, as you can see. Finally, I also want to show you how easy it is if I want to just rotate something. So if I go into plan here, select that top floor, and we've got a rotate button here. It's giving me increments of 45 degrees, which is the simplest one probably. And if I just click on the corner there, it takes me around in 45 degree steps. So suddenly I've made my top floor fly off like that, but I'll just put it back where it came from. So a couple more functions that we didn't mention before. One that's quite useful a lot of the time is the one for connect spaces. So if you pick a single zone, click on connect spaces, and then pick another zone that's adjacent to it, in this case next house 4, it gets them up here, and if I'm clicking merge, we'll now find that those two zones have become one big zone, which can be really good if you want to connect lots of smaller boxes that you put together but actually work together. Then skipping back to plan, just to flag up all the other shapes you can do apart from cubes, such as pyramids and domes, and very easily a cylinder. This one's already set to a 5-meter height, so if I click and drag, suddenly I've now got a nice cylindrical building shaped outside. You can set how many segments you want to form a circle. Probably most useful of the lot, though, is going to be the irregular geometry, again set for 5 meters. Make sure it closes again, and that's the end of it. And there it is an axe, so I've got an irregular shape. Finally, to flag up that you can pick which story you want to look at. It automatically works that out for you, and then at the end you can just go back to the main thing. So one last thing to show you is how to put doors and windows into our rooms. First thing to notice is that these 3 buttons for hole, window and door are up whether or not you selected an area and also in axonometric. So if I just pick window now, I get a little dialog box up that gives me all kinds of options for different shapes and arrangements of windows I could have. If I quickly go back up to a fairly basic one, I get 2 tall windows that are 6 meters high and go down to ground floor level, and these will now appear on whichever surface I drag them to. Clicking it there, you can see I've got some windows. I'm now going to leave that, and I'm going to select a zone, a room over here, which allows me to use this tool, Edit Glazing, which gives me a whole range of options. This is one that just is looking for 20% of glazing in the outer walls. If I click apply on that and close, you can see it's picked one single band of glazing going around the outside of it. If I pick the same zone and click the same button, I can pick another area or something by height, and if I click on remove existing glazing, it'll just replace it. And suddenly I've got lots of regular windows at the heights and distances that I said before. So that's about it for this time, just to show you how this all looks in the viewer. If I now left click and drag, I can see all the windows here at one end, and I can see into the building there. And I can suddenly see inside the other end as well in our little staircase. And zooming out, we can see all the strange shapes we created next to it. And I'll go back to the original viewer. So what we will do next time is just look at how we could use this model that you should now save as your revised model, and we will try testing this out to see how these buildings shade that building in the next tutorial, and maybe some of the more advanced tricks. I'll also try to post up a tutorial where you can work through all the tools one by one. So hope that's been useful, and I will see you shortly. Thank you. Bye.